The hospital was quiet in the early morning. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft golden light through the tall windows. Nurses moved slowly in the corridors, carrying charts and checking on patients. Doctors were finishing their night rounds, speaking in soft tones, and the hum of machines filled the rooms. Everything was calm and ordinary, as it had been for countless mornings before. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the rapid sound of paws on the tiled floor. At first, no one noticed where it was coming from, but then a large German shepherd appeared at the main entrance. His fur was shiny and his muscles moved with strong precision. The dog's eyes were wide and focused, full of determination and urgency. In his mouth, he carried a small, carefully wrapped bundle. His steps were steady and fast, and every few seconds he glanced around as if checking the way. The nurses and doctors froze. Some stepped back, unsure of what they were seeing. A dog had never entered the hospital in such a purposeful way before, and certainly no one had ever seen one carrying something in his mouth. The bundle looked fragile. Some nurses whispered to each other, while others called for security. But the German shepherd ignored everything except the path straight to the emergency room. He reached the doors of the emergency room and dropped the bundle gently onto the floor. It landed with a soft thud. The dog did not run away. Instead, he sat down a few feet away and looked at the nurses with expectant eyes. His tail moved slowly, almost cautiously, as if he knew something very important had just happened. Maria, one of the nurses, hurried forward. She bent down and carefully unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a tiny baby, no older than a few weeks. Her skin was pale, her eyes squeezed shut, and she made small, weak cries. Maria's heart tightened. The baby's little hands were curled into tiny fists, and her whole body shivered as if the cold morning air had reached her inside the blankets. Bruno, the German shepherd, stood silently nearby. His eyes never left the baby. He lowered his head slightly, as if bowing to the nurses, then raised it again, watching their every movement. There was something in his posture, something human in his loyalty and concern. It was clear that he had brought this baby here for help. He had not just wandered into the hospital. He had a mission, and he had completed it. Dr. Amir rushed into the room, his expression filled with surprise and concern. He examined the baby quickly, checking her breathing and pulse. "She is alive," he said, relief in his voice. "We need to warm her and feed her immediately." The nurses carried her to a warmer, and Maria wrapped her in fresh blankets. The baby's crying grew louder at first, but then softened slightly as she felt warmth around her body. Bruno stayed by her side. Every time the baby whimpered or moved, he shifted closer, his head low, his eyes never leaving her face. Maria reached out and patted him gently. "Good boy, Bruno, you brought her here. You saved her life." Bruno let out a soft, almost quiet bark and wagged his tail slightly, as if he understood every word. The other nurses and doctors had gathered around, whispering in amazement. "I have never seen a dog do something like this," one said. "It is as if he knew she needed us and knew exactly where to go." Everyone in the room could feel the tension and the emotion. A small life had been delivered into their hands, and a loyal dog had risked everything to make sure she survived. Bruno continued to watch the baby, his body tense but calm. He did not move away, even when the staff offered him water or a place to rest. He was there for one reason, and one reason only. He had saved a life, and he was not going to leave until he was sure she was safe. The morning light grew brighter, but in that small emergency room, the world outside seemed to disappear. There was only the baby and the dog, and the quiet understanding that something extraordinary had just happened. Bruno had arrived at the hospital with a purpose, and that purpose was clear: to protect and save the tiny life he had found. The hospital staff worked quickly, their hearts full of awe. Bruno had become more than a dog in their eyes. He was a guardian, a hero, and perhaps the most devoted friend a baby could ever have. No one spoke for a moment. Everyone just watched as the German shepherd and the tiny baby shared the first moments of a bond that would never break. The hospital staff were still in awe of the German shepherd who had brought the baby to them. Maria held the tiny girl, now wrapped snugly in warm blankets, and gently rocked her back and forth. The baby, although weak, seemed to sense the safety of the nurse's hands. Her little eyes blinked open, revealing dark brown pupils that were wide with curiosity. Bruno sat on the floor, his tail lying still, but his ears flicked at every sound. He watched the baby as if he understood her every movement. Doctors and nurses whispered to each other, their voices filled with disbelief. "How could a dog know to bring her here?" one nurse asked quietly. Another replied, "It must be instinct, but this is beyond ordinary instinct. This dog saved her life." Dr. Amir stepped closer to examine the baby more carefully. He checked her breathing, her tiny heart, and her reflexes. "She is very weak," he said, his voice calm but serious. "She needs food, warmth, and rest. Whoever left her might have put her in danger, but this dog delivered her to safety." His eyes softened as he looked at Bruno. "And this dog," he added, "is more than a pet. He is a hero." Bruno gave a soft whine and Maria reached down to pat him. "Shh, it's okay," she said gently. "She is safe now because of you. You did the right thing." Bruno lowered his head and nuzzled the baby's tiny feet, as if checking that she was truly all right. The baby, feeling the warmth of his fur, stopped crying for a moment. Her little hand reached out and brushed Bruno's nose, and he leaned closer, careful not to hurt her. News of the remarkable event spread quickly. Hospital staff from other departments came to see the baby and the brave dog who had saved her. Some brought extra blankets and milk, others brought cameras to document the moment. Everyone was moved by the loyalty and courage of Bruno. It was rare to see such a strong connection between an animal and a human being, especially a baby. Meanwhile, the police were called to the hospital to investigate. Officer Khan arrived and asked the nurses about the situation. Maria explained how Bruno had arrived at the hospital with the baby in his mouth. The officer's eyes widened. "This is incredible," he said. "A dog brought a baby to the hospital? We will need to trace where the child came from and find out who left her." Bruno remained seated quietly, his body tense but calm. He did not move even when people approached him. It was clear he understood that the baby's safety was the most important thing. When Officer Khan gently offered him water, Bruno sniffed it and then returned to sit close to the baby. Every time the baby cried, he let out a soft, protective whine. His loyalty and love were obvious to everyone in the room. Dr. Amir decided to monitor the baby closely. "We will need to keep her here until we are sure she is completely healthy," he said. "And Bruno can stay with her. He clearly has a special bond with her." The nurses agreed. They placed a small bed for Bruno near the baby's crib. He curled up beside her, keeping one eye open and one paw close to the blankets. It was a protective gesture, as if he wanted to shield her from the world. The baby's cries became softer as the morning went on. She seemed to sense the safety of the hospital and the presence of her unexpected guardian. The nurses took turns feeding her small amounts of milk and checking her warmth. Bruno stayed close, and every now and then he nuzzled the baby gently, reminding her that she was not alone. The hospital staff whispered among themselves. They were amazed at the intelligence and courage of the dog. "Bruno saved a life today," Maria said softly. "Not many people can say they have witnessed a true hero in action." Dr. Amir nodded. "This is a moment none of us will ever forget. That little girl and this dog have a bond that will last a lifetime." As the day continued, the hospital slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Machines hummed, doctors moved between patients, and nurses walked down the corridors with their rounds. But in the small emergency room there was something extraordinary. A tiny baby had been given a chance at life, and a loyal dog had risked everything to make sure she survived. Bruno and the baby looked at each other, silent but connected. The bond between them had begun, and it would shape the days ahead in ways no one could yet imagine. The hospital room was filled with soft light from the morning sun. The tiny baby, Noor, lay wrapped in warm blankets on a small hospital bed. Her eyes opened occasionally, blinking slowly as if trying to understand the strange world around her. Bruno, the German shepherd, lay close by, his body curved protectively around the baby's bed. Every now and then he lifted his head to watch the nurses as they moved carefully, making sure Noor was comfortable and warm. Maria, the nurse who had first unwrapped Noor, prepared a bottle of milk. She spoke softly to the baby as she fed her, humming a gentle tune. The baby's tiny lips met the nipple and her hands trembled slightly with effort. Bruno watched closely, his ears alert. He gave a soft whine whenever the baby struggled to feed, as if offering silent encouragement. Maria smiled at him. "Good boy, Bruno, you're helping her too." Dr. Amir entered the room to check on Noor. He carefully examined her small body, feeling her heartbeat and breathing. She is very weak, but she is strong enough to recover, he said calmly. We need to make sure she gets food regularly and stays warm. Bruno tilted his head and looked up at Dr. Amir. The doctor could see the deep loyalty in the dog's eyes. You are a true guardian, he said softly. Bruno's tail gave a small wag, and he shifted closer to Noor, his nose brushing her tiny fingers. The nurses worked as a team, taking turns to check Noor's temperature, change her diapers, and ensure she was comfortable. Each time they moved her, Bruno followed, adjusting his position so that he could stay near her. He never barked or growled. He only stayed alert, watching every movement carefully. Noor seemed to sense his presence. Whenever she stirred, she stopped crying when she felt Bruno's warm body next to her. The hospital staff marveled at the bond forming between the dog and the baby. Maria whispered to her colleagues, I have never seen a connection like this. It is as if he knows exactly what she needs. Another nurse nodded. He saved her life and now he is protecting her. This is more than loyalty. It is love. Dr. Amir decided that Noor would stay in the hospital for several days to regain her strength. He also made arrangements for Bruno to stay with her. A small, soft bed was placed next to her crib. Bruno immediately curled up, resting his head on his paws while keeping his eyes on Noor. Even when the nurses tried to move him away briefly for food or water, he returned quickly, making it clear that his place was by her side. As the day continued, Noor slowly began to feed better and cry less. Bruno stayed calm, occasionally nuzzling her or licking her tiny hands. He seemed to know when she needed warmth, comfort, or reassurance. Maria often watched him and said softly, You are teaching us all what it means to care. Dr. Amir agreed. Animals like him remind us that love can be quiet but strong. Noor's lucky to have him. Later in the afternoon, Maria placed Noor in a small hospital bassinet by the window. Sunlight fell gently on her face, warming her skin. Bruno lay beside her, his head raised, eyes fixed on her. When Noor moved, Bruno shifted to block her from the edge of the bed, as if he wanted to keep her safe from even the smallest harm. Every nurse and doctor who passed the room stopped to look, touched by the devotion of the dog. The day slowly turned to evening, and the hospital became quieter. Noor slept peacefully, wrapped in soft blankets. Bruno remained awake, his head on his paws, eyes never leaving her face. He let out a soft sigh occasionally, but he did not move far. The quiet of the hospital, combined with the warmth of the room, gave a sense of calm and safety. Maria smiled as she looked at them. He saved her life, and now he is caring for her every moment. This is a bond that cannot be broken. Dr. Amir nodded. Bruno is not just a pet. He is her protector and her family now. As night fell, Noor slept soundly and Bruno continued to watch over her. The tiny baby had found safety, warmth, and love. The German Shepherd had given everything to make sure she would survive. In that small hospital room, a deep connection had been formed, one that would guide both of them through the days ahead. The hospital was buzzing with quiet excitement. News of the German Shepherd, who had brought a baby to the emergency room, spread quickly among the staff. Everyone wanted to see the brave dog and the tiny girl he had saved. Bruno stayed by Noor's crib, his large body curling protectively around her. His eyes followed every movement in the room, and he gave a soft whine whenever someone came too close. It was clear that he considered Noor his responsibility, and he would not leave her side for anything. Dr. Amir and the nurses realized that they needed to find out where Noor had come from. Someone had left her alone, and the baby had been in danger before Bruno found her. The police were called, and Officer Khan arrived at the hospital to gather information. He asked the nurses and doctors about the baby, how she arrived, and if anyone had seen the dog before entering the hospital. Maria explained everything in detail. Bruno came running through the main doors with the baby in his mouth, she said. He brought her straight here to the emergency room. I have never seen anything like it. Officer Khan listened carefully and then looked at Bruno. The German Shepherd sat quietly, his eyes calm but alert. The officer knelt slightly to meet his gaze. You saved her life, didn't you, boy? He said softly. Bruno tilted his head but did not move. He seemed to understand every word. Officer Khan made a note in his report. He had seen many unusual cases, but a dog delivering a baby to the hospital was unlike anything he had encountered. Meanwhile, the hospital staff tried to learn more about the baby. Dr. Amir examined Noor again, checking her tiny hands and feet. She was growing stronger, and her cries became softer. The nurses gave her food, warmth, and gentle care. Bruno stayed close, occasionally nudging her with his nose to comfort her. The connection between the dog and the baby was growing stronger with every hour. Everyone who watched them could see that Bruno was more than a protector. He was family. Outside the hospital, the police began investigating. They traced Bruno's tag to an address several miles away. When Officer Khan visited the home, he found the family knew nothing about Bruno leaving the house. They were amazed and confused. "Bruno never runs away," the owner said. "He always stays with us." How could he have found the baby and brought her here? It was a mystery that even the officers could not explain. Bruno had acted with purpose, intelligence, and bravery beyond what most people expected from an animal. Back at the hospital, Noor began to respond to her new environment. She reached out for Bruno when she felt scared or hungry. He nudged her gently and licked her tiny hands, calming her instantly. The nurses smiled at this display of loyalty and care. Maria whispered to a colleague, "This dog is teaching her to trust. He saved her, and now he is helping her grow strong." Dr. Amir agreed. "It is rare to see such a bond. Noor trusts Bruno completely, and he is giving her the comfort and protection she needs. We must let them stay together." The hospital staff made arrangements so Bruno could remain by Noor's side, and they placed a soft bed next to her crib. Bruno curled up immediately, ready to continue his watch over her. As the hours passed, the search for Noor's family continued. No one knew who had left her or why. Despite the mystery, the hospital felt full of hope. Every nurse who walked into the room was inspired by the sight of the German Shepherd guarding the baby. Even the doctors, who had seen many emergencies, could not help but feel a deep respect for Bruno's courage. The day slowly turned into evening. Noor was stronger, feeding well and resting comfortably in her blankets. Bruno remained alert, his head resting on his paws while his eyes stayed fixed on her. The staff left the room quietly, leaving the dog and the baby in peace. Bruno's loyalty had created a safe haven in the hospital, a place where Noor could recover without fear. Dr. Amir looked at Bruno one last time before leaving. "You saved a life today," he said softly. "And now you are her guardian. Noor is lucky to have you." Bruno lifted his head and looked at the doctor. His eyes were full of trust and love, and in that moment, everyone could see that he understood his role perfectly. The search for her family might continue, but Noor had found something more important, a protector who would never leave her side. Days passed in the hospital, and Noor grew stronger every day. Her tiny cries became fewer, replaced by soft coos and curious little gurgles. Nurses and doctors were amazed at how quickly she was improving. But even more remarkable was the bond between Noor and Bruno, the German Shepherd who had saved her life. Bruno stayed near her at all times. His head rested close to hers, and he would nudge her gently whenever she moved or stirred. Maria watched them with a warm smile. "Bruno has become her family," she whispered to a colleague. "She trusts him completely, and he loves her like no one else can." Every time Noor made a sound, Bruno's ears perked up, and he leaned closer, ready to comfort her. The nurses often joked that Bruno understood her better than anyone in the hospital. Bruno was not only protective but also playful. When Noor's eyes opened wide with curiosity, he would wag his tail softly and let her touch his fur. She would giggle and reach out her tiny hands, and he would gently lick them. It was clear that Noor felt safe with him, and Bruno felt responsible for her every movement. The hospital staff began to call him her guardian angel, and Bruno seemed to accept this title proudly. Dr. Amir checked on Noor and Bruno every morning. He could see the connection growing stronger. "It is rare to see such devotion," he told Maria. "Noor is recovering faster because of Bruno. He gives her warmth, comfort, and a sense of security. Animals can teach us many things, and he is showing us the meaning of love and loyalty." As the days went on, Bruno became a constant presence in the hospital. He would lie beside Noor during her naps, keeping watch over her tiny body. If she fussed, he would gently nuzzle her or rest his head closer, and she would calm immediately. The nurses often said it was as if Bruno understood every emotion she felt. The baby and the dog seemed to communicate in a language no one else could hear. Visitors and hospital staff were touched by the sight. People from other wards would stop to watch Bruno and Noor. Some would bring toys for the baby, but Bruno would carefully inspect each one, ensuring they were safe before allowing Noor to play. The German Shepherd was patient, calm, and gentle. Everyone who saw them together felt inspired. Bruno's loyalty and Noor's trust were teaching everyone about the beauty of care and companionship. Even at night, Bruno remained alert. While the hospital corridors were quiet and the machines hummed softly, Bruno lay close to Noor, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. Maria would often peek in to check on them. She smiled every time she saw Bruno's head resting protectively near Noor. "He is not just watching her," she said softly. "He is loving her, guiding her, and keeping her safe." As Noor began to smile more often, Bruno responded with gentle nudges and soft whines of joy. It was a bond that went beyond words. Every person in the hospital could see it. Noor's laughter and Bruno's gentle presence filled the room with warmth. Even Dr. Amir admitted that the sight made the hospital feel like more than just a place of care. It felt like a home filled with love. One afternoon, Maria placed Noor in a small chair by the window. Sunlight bathed her tiny face and she reached out for Bruno. He leaned close, letting her touch his soft fur. Noor gurgled happily and Bruno wagged his tail slowly, as if proud to see her smile. The nurses quietly watched, knowing that this bond would last a lifetime. The hospital staff often talked about how rare and special this connection was. Bruno had not only saved Noor's life, but had become her protector, teacher, and friend. Noor, in turn, had given Bruno purpose and trust. They relied on each other, and together they created a story of love, loyalty, and hope that inspired everyone around them. As the day ended and the hospital grew quiet, Noor rested peacefully in her blankets. Bruno lay beside her, his head on her tiny mattress, his body a shield of warmth and protection. The bond between them had grown stronger with every passing moment. It was a bond that no one could break, and it was a bond that would shape the rest of their lives together. The days passed quietly in the hospital, but the mystery of Noor's arrival remained. No one knew who had left her, and why she had been abandoned. The police continued their search, asking questions in the city and visiting nearby homes. But every lead ended in disappointment. Noor's family could not be found, and the reason why Bruno had chosen this hospital remained a puzzle. Meanwhile, Bruno stayed by Noor's side without fail. Every morning he would wait near the doorway until the nurses brought her out of her bed. If Noor was upset or crying, Bruno would gently nuzzle her or rest his head on her tiny legs. The baby seemed to trust him completely. His calm presence was more comforting than anything else the staff could provide. Even Dr. Amir commented, "Bruno's loyalty is extraordinary. Noor is responding to him in a way that is miraculous." Visitors often stopped to look at the unusual pair. Parents of other children, nurses, and even hospital staff from different departments would enter the room quietly, smiling at the sight of Bruno lying next to Noor, his eyes alert and protective. People whispered about how extraordinary it was for a dog to care for a human child with such devotion. Bruno seemed to understand every movement Noor made. He wagged his tail gently when she smiled, and he whimpered softly when she cried. Despite the mystery surrounding Noor, she began to grow stronger each day. Her cheeks became fuller, her tiny fingers more active, and her eyes brighter. Bruno was always nearby. Whenever Noor reached out, he would nuzzle her gently. She seemed to find courage in his presence. The nurses often said that she had survived because of the dog, and that his constant care gave her hope. Officer Khan returned to the hospital with new questions. "We traced Bruno's tag to his home," he explained to Dr. Amir, "but his family says he never leaves. Yet he brought Noor here. How did he know where to go?" Dr. Amir shook his head. "Some things cannot be explained," he said quietly. "Bruno saved her. That is enough. We may never know how he found her, but the bond they share is clear." Bruno remained calm during the investigation. He lay beside Noor, his body forming a protective shield. When the officers came closer, he would raise his head and watch them carefully. He did not growl or bark. It was as if he was telling everyone silently that Noor's safety came first. The hospital staff admired his discipline and patience. Bruno had not only saved a life, but he had also become a guardian who understood responsibility. Noor's recovery continued steadily. She began to babble and coo, and her tiny hands reached for Bruno whenever she could. Bruno responded with gentle nudges, careful not to hurt her. It was a language of love and trust that only the two of them shared. Maria often said, "They speak without words. Bruno protects her, and Noor trusts him completely. Dr. Amir agreed, adding, "It is rare to see such intelligence and loyalty combined in a single creature." As the hospital days went by, the mystery of Noor's past faded in importance. The staff realized that what mattered most was the life she was living now. Bruno had found her when she was in danger, and he had given her a chance to grow up safely. Even though no one knew who had left her, the baby had found something just as important: a protector, a friend, and a family in Bruno. The hospital slowly became a place where Noor's story inspired everyone. People came to see the brave German shepherd and the baby he had saved. Stories of their bond were told to new nurses, visitors, and even patients. Bruno became a symbol of loyalty, courage, and unconditional love. He had not only saved a life but had created a story that would touch hearts for years to come. At night, Noor would sleep peacefully in her blankets, with Bruno curled up beside her. His eyes remained open, scanning the room for any sign of danger. Even when the hospital was quiet and still, Bruno did not rest. He knew his job was to protect Noor, and he would continue to do so no matter what. The mystery of her past might never be solved, but the love and care she received were clear for everyone to see. Bruno had given her a safe place, and that was all that mattered. The hospital staff had watched Noor and Bruno for several days, and it had become clear to everyone that the baby and the dog shared a special connection. Bruno had saved Noor's life and had stayed by her side without rest. He protected her, comforted her, and gave her strength. Everyone in the hospital agreed that separating them would be wrong. Dr. Amir called a meeting with the nurses and hospital administrators. "We have to decide what is best for Noor," he said. "She has no family here, and her parents have not been found. Bruno saved her life and has become her protector. If we separate them, we could harm her emotional well-being." The nurses nodded in agreement. Maria added, "Bruno has been her family since the first moment she arrived. We cannot take him away from her now." The discussion continued, and the staff came up with a plan. They decided that Bruno would stay in the hospital with Noor until she was old enough to go home. They would create a special space for them, a room where the baby could grow safely and Bruno could continue to be near her. Everyone was happy with the plan, knowing that it was the right choice for both of them. When the decision was made, Maria approached Bruno. She knelt down and said softly, "Bruno, you can stay here with Noor. You will always be her family. You are her hero." Bruno lifted his head and wagged his tail slightly as if he understood every word. Then he settled back down next to Noor's crib, resting his head on the edge and keeping a watchful eye on her. Noor, though still a small baby, seemed to sense the happiness in the room. She smiled and reached her tiny hand toward Bruno. He nudged her gently with his nose, and she giggled softly. It was a small moment, but it carried great meaning. Everyone watching felt their hearts fill with warmth and hope. The bond between the baby and the dog had guided the hospital to make the right decision. Over the next few days, the staff made preparations for Bruno and Noor. They brought toys, blankets, and soft beds. Bruno learned to stay in the designated area, but he still remained close to Noor at all times. The nurses watched him with admiration. "He is teaching us all about care and patience," Maria said quietly. "Noor has learned to trust completely, and he has taught her to feel safe in this world." Dr. Amir checked on Noor regularly, making sure she was healthy and happy. He could see the bond between the baby and the dog growing stronger. Every time Noor cried, Bruno would nuzzle her and calm her. When she smiled, he would wag his tail gently, sharing in her happiness. It was a connection that went beyond words, a love that was simple but powerful. The hospital staff also reached out to the city's news reporters to share the story of Bruno and Noor. People from all over the city were touched by the story of a dog who had saved a baby's life and remained her protector. Letters and gifts began arriving at the hospital for Noor and Bruno, all filled with messages of admiration and love. The story inspired everyone who heard it, reminding them of the power of courage, loyalty, and care. As days turned into weeks, Noor grew stronger and happier. Bruno never left her side. He was patient with her movements, careful with her tiny hands, and gentle with her laughter. The staff often said that Bruno had saved more than just her life. He had also given her a sense of security, trust, and love that no medicine could provide. One evening, Dr. Amir stood quietly by Noor's crib, watching Bruno curl up next to her. "She will never be alone," he said softly. "This dog has become her family and she will always have him to protect her." Maria smiled. "It is the best decision we could have made," she said. "Noor has a hero and Bruno has a purpose. They belong together." In that quiet moment, the hospital room felt full of peace. Noor slept soundly in her blankets and Bruno lay beside her, watching over her carefully. The decision had been made and it was the right one. A tiny baby and a brave dog had found each other, and together, they would face the future with love, trust, and courage. The hospital had become their home, and their bond would guide them through every challenge to come. Time passed and Noor grew stronger and healthier each day. She learned to sit up, reach for toys, and smile at the people around her. But through every new discovery and milestone, one thing remained constant: Bruno, the German shepherd who had saved her life. He never left her side. Every morning he waited for her to wake, his eyes filled with loyalty and love. Noor's laughter became a daily joy in the hospital. When she cooed or babbled, Bruno would wag his tail slowly and lean closer as if celebrating with her. He would gently nudge her tiny hands with his nose, and she would giggle and reach out to touch his soft fur. Everyone who saw them together could feel the bond between them. It was a connection built on trust, care, and unconditional love. Maria often watched them quietly. She could see how Bruno's presence helped Noor feel safe and confident. "He is teaching her to trust the world," she said softly to Dr. Amir. "She knows she is not alone and she will carry that confidence with her for her whole life." Dr. Amir nodded. Bruno gave her more than protection. He gave her hope and love. That is priceless. Bruno had become more than a guardian. He was Noor's teacher, friend, and companion. He allowed her to explore the hospital garden under careful supervision, letting her crawl along the grass while he stayed close. He encouraged her with gentle nudges and watched her carefully for any signs of discomfort. Noor's curiosity grew, but so did her sense of security thanks to her devoted friend. The hospital staff often commented on their bond. Every nurse, doctor, and visitor was touched by the sight of a tiny baby and a large German shepherd forming such a unique friendship. People would smile and sometimes shed tears of joy when they saw Noor reach for Bruno's face and him respond with gentle licks. It was a story of love that needed no words. Even when Noor had a fever or cried during checkups, Bruno stayed calm and close. He nuzzled her, licked her hands, and rested his head on the edge of her crib. Noor's tears would slow and she would relax, feeling the protection of her hero dog. Dr. Amir often said that Bruno's presence made medical care easier. The baby trusted him completely, and that trust was a key part of her healing. As Noor grew into a toddler, her bond with Bruno became more playful. She began to crawl faster, toddle, and even clap her hands in delight. Bruno followed her closely, gently guiding her and making sure she stayed safe. They played together in the garden, sharing small toys and exploring corners of the hospital with curiosity. Staff often said that the hospital had never felt so alive. Bruno and Noor had brought warmth, joy, and love into every corner of the building. The years passed, but the bond between Noor and Bruno never weakened. She learned to walk and then run, always with Bruno at her side. He would trot slowly, matching her pace, keeping a watchful eye on every step she took. Noor's laughter and Bruno's gentle presence created a story of courage, loyalty, and love that everyone in the hospital remembered. One quiet evening, as the sun cast golden light through the windows, Noor sat in Bruno's soft bed. She reached out and hugged him tightly. Bruno rested his head on her shoulder, calm and content. Maria watched from the doorway and whispered, "They are more than family. They are proof that love can save a life and heal the heart." Dr. Amir nodded. "Noor would not be here today without him, and he will always be by her side. That is true love." Noor looked into Bruno's eyes and smiled. She felt safe, loved, and understood. Bruno responded with a gentle nuzzle as if to say, "I will always be here for you." Together they had faced danger, uncertainty, and a lonely beginning. Together they had found trust, comfort, and happiness. Their bond was unbreakable. The hospital staff often shared their story with visitors. A brave dog had saved a tiny baby and given her a chance to grow up strong and loved. Bruno had shown everyone the meaning of loyalty, courage, and unconditional care. Noor had shown everyone the power of trust and connection. In the end, Noor and Bruno were more than just a baby and a dog. They were family. They were heroes to each other, and in the quiet of the hospital where love and care filled every room, their story remained a reminder that courage and love can appear in the most unexpected forms. Bruno had saved Noor's life, but their bond had created a lifetime of happiness, trust, and hope.